I want to introduce Yossi onto the stage. I mean, he has a very good track record, a lot of different conferences and TED Talks and all these things. He's a veteran in the space. A round of applause, please, for Yossi. Please come onto the stage.
All right, cheers. Thanks, Jose. So, good afternoon, everybody. This talk is about the fact that we won. Yay, right? Us nerds, proud geeks, we rule the world. The software runs the world. We write software. You control the world. You control the code. You control the world. But it doesn't feel like that all the time, right? So in this session, this afternoon, I'm going to talk to you about, this is more like a thinking talk rather than a deep technical talk. I think it's more suitable for this hour after these 2 days. And I'll give you some ideas on how we can actually deal with it and deal with a lot of topics, AI, stress, and a bit about what I do. So here is an example of some of the things I do or did. This is one of them. We have audio, maybe. Okay. So I've been adopting a few careers in the same time, this and that, rather than this or that, opening for Metallica, doing a lot of interesting stuff in terms of art. Also invented my own unique instrument, the Buzukitara, 3 instruments in one body. I also worked for Microsoft in the 90s and early 2000s. I was the only guy in Microsoft that I knew of that had Linux running with the Lilo bootloader. Was very unpleasant at those days. Today, Microsoft loves Linux. It hugs it, more like when a bear hugs you, but still it's a hug. I was a big advocate of PowerShell, which was written on great giants that come before it, Bash, C Shell script, of course, etc. Did columns on TechNet, Professor Windows, and also wrote resource kit tools for Windows Server. I was also part of Javelin Networks. In 2018, we built a deception solution for Active Directory network, and we sold it to Symantec in summer of 2018. And today, I'm a co-founder, chief hacking officer of Tenroot, a niche cybersecurity boutique company, working with Fortune 100 companies, hailing in Israel, doing really interesting, non-boring stuff. In my spare time, I love to fly planes. The world is really peaceful and nice up there. And in my very more spare time, when I'm not with one of my 3 daughters, I also volunteer for youth at risk, for kids that are less fortunate. But deep down with all these activities, I'm just a geek. I'm a nerd. For example, last time we moved apartments, in retrospect, I noticed that I marked down the boxes. I literally XML tagged what's inside the boxes. I don't know why I did that. There's no reason to do that, of course. This is subconscious geek stuff. And I said we won, the nerds won. If you know this movie, probably it has something about your age, maybe, Revenge of the Nerds in 1984. This was geek's pride, you know. Back then, in the 80s, 90s, it wasn't sure we were going to win at all. We were rejected. We were considered outsiders. But technology moved on and really changed the landscape of the society and culture. And really, times have changed. For example, this is an ad, which I saw back then, 20-plus years back, in many websites. Actually, Google had to pay for ads in order for you to come visit their search engine. No ads, no distraction, no portal litter, just fast loading. Reward them with a visit, you know. It's amazing that, as we say, you give a search engine a cookie, it will want the entire computer. So, like I said, we don't feel like that. We don't feel like we control the world, we control the code, and software runs the world. So why is that? So I'll try to give you some reasons. I'll offer some reason on why this happens and how we can improve that. So I think that disillusionment, the point of disillusionment of coders and developers, software builders, really begins with understanding the duality of technology in depth. For every field of sciences, there is this point of disillusionment that what you do is not just for good. Of course, in cyber, we feel it very well. For example, nuclear scientists felt that back in the 1940s, where they wanted to come to a very big goal of energy and a lot of good things for humanity. So the first point is about duality of technology. Technology is a two-way street. It's a double-edged sword. It will always be used for better and worse. There are a lot of technologies. It's just an extension of man. So our capacity-limited eyes or ears, we use technology to expand our senses, like telescopes, hearing aids, telephone for voice, etc. A knife is an amazing solution, amazing technology, right? It's really an amazing tool. You can cut salad and fix stuff. You can also kill a man. You can kill a person with a knife. So, you know, like Marshall McLuhan said, we never know how the technology will be used. And today, really, technology can be used online for a lot of bad things. And you see it all the time. Cyber criminals are using technology. They are the very best early adopters of every piece of technology. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, blockchain, whatever, software as a service websites, or just any trend that comes out, any new TV series, any type of games, immediately cyber criminals are there to exploit it. And like I said, we never know how technology will be used. This is an example from around the early 1960s. Do you know what this is? Do you have an idea? Can you guess? It's okay. This is, it's not a computer, this is a hard disk. It's just an additional hard disk, external hard disk. The computer is really much bigger. We see here IBM providing the biggest hard disk at the time in the world. If you can guess its capacity, it's 2 refrigerators. 6 people have to stop the traffic in Manhattan to provide it. Sorry? 10 megabytes is close. It's 5 megabytes. So essentially, we see 5 megabytes before a defragment, right? So it's less. But we see actually people carrying an MP3 song in low quality. That's what we see here. And really, it's amazing. Like storage is one good example of how things turn with technology. In this shoebox that some of us probably did have in the 80s, already we have 20-something years after, we have more than 130 megabytes. And this little guy up there, that disk on key actually can contain 256 gigabytes or half terabyte, and it's the size of my small finger. And even micro SDs, of course, etc. This can be carrying a lot of data, gigabytes of data in a very small factor, plastic. It's not even detectable in some gateways. And if you think about the Snowden story, I don't know how many of you read or actually know the story about Edward Snowden, that used his Rubik cube to exfiltrate documents, a lot of data inside this plastic Rubik cube. The second point is about the world running on software, and this is about understanding the role that we have as software developers, because with great power comes great responsibility. This is a software bug, one of few incidents, sadly, that crashed at least 2 different flights on 2 different occasions from the same software bug and killed hundreds of people. It's a function. It's just a function that had a bug in it. It's a very small piece of code. Think about it. Essentially, it's a function that controlled the stall automatic correction of potential stall of the airplane, right? The angle of attack. And think about what it makes what it makes a person feel, probably people that were involved in this. This is why sometimes tweets like that actually make sense to me. You know, I read them and I say, sure, I'm here for more than 30 years, proudly creating code all time, all day long. I cannot imagine my life without code, but yeah, sometimes it does make sense. Of course, technology is a two-edged sword. It's two-way, right? The duality of technology. Sometimes the lack of technology kills or is very dangerous. Technology also does a lot of good things, especially still looking at aviation disasters, so-called, although it's one of the safest, probably the safest transport in the world. But before the days of GPS, us pilots, we needed to get our bearings and navigate through different ways rather than satellites. And this incident of Korean Airlines 007 in September 1st, 1983, this was when the Russians were very tensed around their aerial airspace. And there was a flight from Alaska to South Korea that they tried to look for their bearings. They got close to the land because it's better to understand where you are when you see land, not over water. And they got shot down. You know, they got intercepted. So that can really make a change. The third thing is really about understanding the genuine role of technology in general and software in particular in our lives. I love this quote. It's from a book on information systems from the late 60s, where more or less where TCP/IP was conceived. The hopes we put in computing are greatly exaggerated. It does not free us from thinking, but from calculating. And it does not free us from the necessity of determining and making a decision. What a naive quote to look at it in the way that we look at it today. Today, we are all surrounded by technology that really thinks for us in many, many ways. And you know, what can I tell you? What does a person need at the end of the day, right? So although I didn't finish high school because I did computer hacking, hardware hacking, and music, but I got later to do a few degrees, and I learned about the Maslow pyramid of needs. You remember this, right? Physical needs, etc. I don't know if you heard, but lately they updated the pyramid. So it turns out that, first of all, you really need some battery life. Well, this is somehow not the most serious quote. It has a lot of truth in it. You know, this is one of the ways I like to explain information security and cybersecurity. We used to be people and computers. We didn't interact that much. You would go to work at the 80s or early 90s, you would touch a computer, you go back, you wouldn't touch a computer until the next day. Well, not me. I had them in the 80s as well, but most people. And today you wake up by a computer. Your telephone is God's gift for intelligence and espionage and whatever. It locks you down and in so many ways has so many elements in it that can track you down and do a lot more. Your TVs have computers. When you pump gas, you touch a computer, probably a Linux box. So we are all surrounded. And this reality where hardware, you know, just simple stuff, plastic and metal, and software, which is just lines of code, just a bunch of zeros and ones that somebody wrote. Who wrote it? You wrote it, Klaus. You wrote it. Trust me, I'm a hacker. Somebody wrote it. Maybe he changed it on the way. And people. So where hardware, software, and people are losing the boundaries, it's really hard to understand where the person begins and where the device or the software ends, and vice versa. And of course, today, with the age of AI, machine learning, and LLMs, large language models, we see this new type of processes to get into account, because there are a lot of stochastic processes. If you have read maybe the work of Bender and Colley, Emily Bender in Stochastic Parrots, I encourage you to read that, regarding the process of AI having sort of randomness entwined, right? Random variables. While this is important for many fields like weather predictions, bacteria multiplying, etc., we understand that they understand language, but they still don't understand context in ways that there is no concept of physical reality for AI, right? So it doesn't really know, it knows the language, it can answer well, very deterministic, it's very persuasive, but there is a whole field that is missing there in terms of the context. And finally, to the fourth reason why this feeling might occur is that at the end of the day, the main reason is that we are irrational creatures trying to behave rationally, right? But we've infected computers with our irrational behavior. In fact, AI and machine learning, in a way, with all this randomness and stochastic processes, are infecting for the, not the first time, but in the biggest move in human history, we're infecting computers and algorithms with our way of thinking, in a way. But at the same time, we don't understand how they learn this randomness that we work at. And there are a lot of examples to explain why we are not rational and we try to make up things. For example, what do you see here? Do you have any idea? You can shout out, it's okay. Yeah, yeah, exactly, like for the electricity, some see a face, some see somebody that is not pleased and shaved his eyebrows. But at the end of the day, it's just a circle with 3 lines. Come on. This phenomena is one of many called pareidolia, and it's where humans just complete information that is really not there. It's never there. We just love to put a whole layer of abstraction on this stuff. There are a lot of behaviorals that can do that. So while humans are very good at understanding specific concepts, such as this picture, I don't know how many CAPTCHA algorithms can really answer this CAPTCHA correctly. If you've seen, if you know the dude, right, from Big Lebowski, Jeff Bridges. But at the same time, they struggle with very simple things. For example, computers are also guilty of pareidolia. For example, it's what a small child easily recognizes. You take a 2-year-old child, it will recognize this is a car, this is a bicycle, these are flowers, this is a car, etc., traffic light. But computers find it very hard to do that. They need a lot of data sets and a lot of corrections to go through this with difficulty, and they fail to master it. Humans, the way that we handle our irrational thinking and behavior is by having best practices, set of rules, checklists, etc. Especially in aviation, we look at the human factor very, very seriously. For example, one of many acronyms we have is I am safe, which is all the things you should never go to fly a plane if you have them. Illness, medication, stress, alcohol at least 8 hours after, fatigue if you're too tired, emotional, eating more or less, etc. And this still doesn't help, of course. Sometimes people don't follow those rules. Luckily, it's very rare that it happens, but we try to think of it very seriously. So what can we do to feel better, feel more in peace with all these different things, with technology and us? So I try to look at it about having the best opportunity in human history to become, or to be again, Renaissance geeks. The time of the Renaissance, you know, the rebirth that we had at the late Middle Ages, where people practiced both sciences as well as arts. So it would be, you know, you had the examples of Raphael, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, etc. You would see them in a lifetime doing deep research and doing a lot of work, serious work, both in sculpture or paintings or music, etc., alongside chemistry and physics and other fields of science. And I think we are in this tipping point that we should rise up to do this exact thing that will make us more complete. And I think technology can learn a lot from arts. For example, if you look at zero trust, especially if you're coming from the cybersecurity field, you know this sort of concept or approach is a very trendy kind of word, although it really relies on very basic, old school, nothing new ideas, such as isolation, principle of least privilege, etc. But this approach doesn't work. In the real world, it's very struggling to find zero trust systems because, this amazing concept that all organizations are trying to deploy, that you trust no one, verify everyone, really is very hard to implement. So I'm thinking maybe if you take an example from literature, from art, from different things, you can find ways to build the next innovative and groundbreaking software that will do something different. For example, when it comes to trust, we have a lot of examples in literature history. I love this quote by Ernest Hemingway, that the best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. Now, this can be just a quote, but this can also be a mindset for your next startup. Because, for example, what we do at Tenroot, we get inspired by art all the time, and we work a lot on mindset, not only skill set and tool set. So one of the algorithms we have is we identify the person by the typing patterns. We take specific, we're building data models with AI, etc. But when you type a password, it's not the same that you type a URL and other places in the context that you're typing. We take really good care of the context. And we know with very high accuracy, over 90% in most scenarios, if the person typing is the person he claims to be by the profiling of his typing patterns that we collected. So there are a lot of things you can find from this type of examples. And of course, we can enforce that authorization, post-authentication, according to those patterns. Sometimes necessity is the mother of all invention. For example, I play, like I told you, a lot of guitars, musical string instruments, but mainly the electric guitar, the bouzouki, a Greek traditional mandolin, and the acoustic or a nylon string guitar, classical Spanish guitar. And I really had a need to move between them in the same song while I'm on stage. So I tried to put like stands and hovering over them, and it didn't work. It fell on the crowd. And I tried to put like 2 straps on me. It all failed, so I decided to build it. And I just went to this mission with a piano renovator that originally had a lot of experience in piano building. And he's today a full-stack developer, by the way. I killed his profession. But we went to this journey together, and we built it. And the first prototype we did failed. It just didn't work. And guitar makers, guitar luthiers, told me it's not going to work because these east-west acoustic electric instruments are competing on shared resources in very different way. You see the bouzouki, the mandolin, needs wood like spruce, and it needs the resonance in order to produce the unique sound. Electric guitar needs the full wood, whole wood body, wood like mahogany, things like that. So we had to find a set of compromises. And I actually did 84 changes from the original model. So many times we have to recognize that in every field of profession that we do, doesn't matter if it's art, craft, actually building something physically or software, failure always have to be an option. Because if your company doesn't encourage failure, it's a big mistake. We should be able to be mistaking every time, every day, in everything we do. Because we miss, like Michael Jordan said, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. So 100 things of the things you never try, you lose, you miss, and you fail in them. So at least try. So let's give some tips on what we can do to feel better with this reality and become a Renaissance geek. This is the first tip in general. It doesn't have to do with being a Renaissance geek. It's just always good to code as if the person that is maintaining your code is a serial killer. So the first thing, in order to find your purpose in life or your calling, your designation, I would say is to find something you love, something you're good at, and something that really improves the lives of others. And this Venn diagram, as simple as it is, if you can find yourself some activity that you do, or find the meaning of the missing piece of those three aspects in anything you do, whether it's architecture or software building, etc. It's really important for the long-term mental model of what we are doing in general. And you can also get it from different activities, not necessarily just the very one you do, but just combine it. Don't do just this or that, but this and that, in order to get to this sweet spot. The other thing is about stress. In aviation, the way we define stress, because the human factor is very important, is a person's assessment regarding the demands placed on him and his perceived ability, what we think we are capable of, to deal with these demands. So if you read between the lines of this definition, it actually makes sense that there is a mental preparation needed. And with mental preparation, you reduce stress. It sounds simple, but it's really true. Before you go to do something, you build the model of what you're about to do, and you think about it end to beginning, and just reverse engineer of what you need to do. You say to yourself, I got this. These are things I've done in the past. I know you see the constraints, the time, the quality of the deliverables that have to be done, etc. And this really gives you a better chance to deal with stress. The other thing is about being in the moment. We all juggle in modern times, in contemporary hectic beat. We juggle with a lot of things, with family and the work and trying to get stuff, time for hobbies, etc. I like to think about all the things I do in life as, sort of VMs, virtual machines or containers or whatever. When I'm doing something, I'm in the moment. I'm just doing this. Of course, there is here a lot of other containers doing a lot of other different things, which I will attend to while I get off this stage. But until I get off this stage, it's as if they don't exist. All those other worries. And in this, I think we as so-called rational people that know more about algorithms and logical thinking, etc., can probably do this isolation maybe in a better way. We have some good opening point to try and adapt at least this way of thinking. Also in aviation, we have a model called the shell model. Ironically enough, it's like a shell, right? A shell code or a command line or whatever. But shell actually stands in aviation for the initials of software, essentially the literature, the hardware, the plane itself, environment, weather, etc., and liveware. So it's the person you, the pilot in command, and the group of people that are surrounding you, the air crew, the ground staff, air traffic control, etc. And we try to bring a balance between all these elements. We learn each element separately, and we understand that everything affects everything. And only by this sort of holistic approach can we understand better the field we are operating at. And finally, there are places to worry everywhere. And children are probably, especially when they're young, but trust me, my eldest is over 20, and the concerns are never over. I love this example because from everything that the captain tells you when you are flying, these things that they say, keep your seatbelt, etc. These are all okay, but the only thing that is really important is this piece of advice about if oxygen masks fall, this means that the pressure, you are in a decomposed a cell. So if the pressure comes down, this means you're losing oxygen inside the plane. You put the mask on you first before the child. And you think, what does it make? Because there is this thing called hypoxia. You can check it out. This means because we are losing oxygen from the decompressed cabin, this means you have something roughly can be 45 seconds to very few minutes before you lose conscience. You can actually fall unconscious. And you think about it, it's sad enough that there is this thing happening, but your child, if you put it first on him and you don't have a chance to put on you, your child will see you unconscious and he will be wearing a mask. That's really not something you want to happen. So just listen to this piece of advice. Think about you a bit first, because every child needs a grown-up that is happy with himself and feels safe. We feel safe, they feel safe. Just take a second before you attend to them to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, as I spoke about AI, machine learning, etc., they step up to take a very big part of our life. In the future, we're moving forward. So I think philosophy and psychology should be and need to be part of AI as a system, because those algorithms they need to be assigned with some awareness to the fact that they need to interact with humans. They need to understand they're a part of a system that considers humans, right? And remember, at the end of the day, it's all a bunch of nested if statements, including you and even ChatGPT. It's just a bunch of if statements. Thank you. T. Hanks.
All right, Yossi, thank you for a lovely talk. We'll open it up for some questions here in Slido. I like the first one. The only quote I'm taking away from you is, trust me, I'm a hacker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have time to be a doctor, not in this lifetime, but maybe in the next role. But yeah, exactly. If there are other questions that you want to ask, feel free. The slides will be up on the Crafthub website a few days after the conference. And feel free to hit me up also on the email if you get the presentation back again. So
can we put the presentation back just one more
second? My email back, and feel free just to send me personal questions. Check my GitHub if you want to see code. But like I said, today was more of a thinking things rather than technical.
No, and after such a long day of all things, I think just this is a really good topic to wrap it up and make us think a little bit broader, right? I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.